Good morning, Chair. I'm Tulinje Muluzi, a Member of Parliament for Machingali Kwenu, and I'm the Vice Chair for Public Accounts. Thank you.
Honour members and colleagues from media, my name is Baba Stephen Malondera Kasiamu, MP for Lilongwe Nyanja constituency and Chairperson of Public Accounts Committee. Honour members and distinguished members of media, good morning. The Public Accounts Committee has convened to resume its public inquiry into the purchase of the Amaryllis Hotel by the Public Service Pension Trust Fund. This inquiry is being undertaken in line with the committee's constitutional mandate to ensure accountability, transparency, and prudent use of the public resources. The committee is scheduled to engage a number of key stakeholders in the course of this inquiry, including Dr. Mafuta Mare, former Reserve Bank Governor or Registrar of Financial Institutions. I need to put it on record that earlier on, we had also requested that he appears, but at that time he was attending to medical issues. So I'd like to thank and appreciate that today is going to appear soon after this engagement. And I would like, as Parliament, to appreciate his commitment, despite that he's not in full health. He has committed to come and appear. And having heard from him, as Public Accounts Committee, we've also agreed that we give him enough time so that he can also get back and keep recovering. May I also appeal to those who have raised issues that they are not okay, to spare their precious time just to appear to this committee like the gesture that Honorable or Dr. Mafuta Mare has shown. This is something that the committee has to put on record. After the former Reserve Governor, we also have an interface with the National Bank of Malawi, the Chief Secretary of the government, Dr. Saidi, who also have an interface with Yusuf Investment Limited, and Madam Colleen Zamba, former Secretary to the President and Cabinet, among others. Why I'm saying among others? In the event that we've noted that somebody must appear, we will summon them as Parliament to appear so that we can beef up to the inquiry. Honour members and members of the public may wish to note that following the dispatch of letters on 10th April 2026, requesting the appearance of Yusuf Investment Limited, this committee it was expecting him to appear on the 23rd April 2026, but the committee received a communication from Mr. Shilaz Yusuf in which he acknowledged a receipt and raised concern requiring in-camera proceedings. When you're talking of in-camera, that is closed without members of public watching. As a chairperson of Public Accounts Committee, in consultation with the whole Public Accounts Committee, we resolved as a committee to turn down that request that Mr. Yusuf appears in camera. And we requested him, upon providing guidance to him on 13th April 2026, Mr. Shiraz Yusuf responded on the same day, the 13th of April 2026, indicating that he is unwell and currently receiving medical treatment in the Republic of South Africa. While the committee has taken note of this development, it wishes to emphasize that its proceedings cannot be unduly delayed. Accordingly, the committee has resolved to reschedule his appearance to Wednesday, 29th April 2026. In the event that Mr. Shiraz Yusuf remains unwell and is unable to attend, the committee has communicated that the board members of Yusuf Investment Limited, including Mr. Yusuf Shilaz Yusuf, who was one of the signatories to the sale agreement, should appear before it on the said date without fail. In this case, the said date is Wednesday, 29th April 2026. With regard to Madam Corinne Zamba, the committee is yet to receive a response to its request for her appearance. In the absence of any communication to the contrary, the committee will proceed on the basis that she is expected to appear before it as scheduled on Tuesday, 28th April 2026. The committee wishes to underscore that these proceedings are being conducted in the public interest and in full cooperation from all concerned stakeholders is not optional but required. The committee will not hesitate to evoke its powers to ensure attendance and the production of necessary information where it is required. Honourable members, thank you. And we will proceed to invite the next stakeholder. Secretariat, kindly usher in the former governor or the former registrar of financial institutions. Thank you so much. Welcome to Parliament, Dr. Mafuta Male. The committee has invited you to appear before us today in your former capacity as Registrar of Financial Institutions and Governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. As you are aware, the committee has been investigating the circumstances surrounding the Amaryllis Hotel transaction, which was initiated and ultimately concluded in January 2026 during your tenure as a registrar. In previous sessions, the current Registrar of Financial Institutions testified before this committee and provided critical evidence. That evidence established the following facts, which form the basis of our invitation to you today. That you personally issued a formal stop order on 14th November 2025, directing the Public Service Pension Trust Fund to halt the proposed acquisition of Amaryllis Hotel. That despite this clear and unequivocal regulatory directive, the fund board proceeded to sign the sale agreement just 3 days later on the 17th November 2025, an act the committee has characterized as premeditated defiance of your authority. That the transaction involved the payment of 90 billion of pensioners' fund, representing an acceptable 21% concentration risk in a single unlisted asset. That following the board's defiance, the current registrar was able to impose 40 million fine on each trustee, and in coordination with the Financial Intelligence Authority, successfully flows 72.2 billion of the amount paid. What remains unclear, Dr. Male, is why the transaction was not halted before its conclusion in January 2026, despite your having issued a stop order as early as November 2025. Questions also arise as to why your office, through the Reserve Bank's payment and settlement system, did not or could not block the transfer of such substantial sum in defiance of your own directive. The committee therefore requires your direct testimony to understand the scope and intent of your stop order, what action, if any, you took after it was defied, why the transaction was allowed to proceed to final execution in January 2026 under your regulatory watch, and whether the Reserve Bank's own clearing and authorization mechanisms failed to support your directive. Dr. Male, you are not here to answer for the current registrar. You are here to account for your own regulatory decisions and omissions during the critical period when this transaction moved from proposal to completion. We will not proceed. We will proceed with introductions. Then offer of an oath from you. Then the questions will follow. Honour members, having highlighted what I've highlighted to Dr. Mafuta Male, allow me to ask honor members to introduce themselves. Then we'll move to a secretariat and media. Salima Senk.
Chairperson, I'm Gerard Kabisanepiri from Salima Central constituency.
Up morning, Chair. I'm Lawrence Chagakala Jazia, Lilongwe Chilobwe constituency.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My name is Ivua Gaunda, MP for Nkatabe Central. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Chair. Through you, this is Young Peel, representing the people of Lilongwe East. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Gerard Tasaugadala, representing the people of Blantyre Central constituency. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Winston Kamabanjira, Member of Parliament for Lilongwe Chiwamba constituency. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I'm George Million Palombe Machemba. Thank you, Chair.
Representing the people of Lilongwe panel, this is Aizenao Nkaka.
I'm Patricia Galiati, representing people of Mulanje West. Dear Juma, thank you so much.
And from the good people of Zomba City North, my name is Best Ben Awani. Thank you, Chair.
My name is Temba Menson Nkandawire, representing the people of Blantyre City Chichirimesesa. Thank you, Chair.
Through Honorable Chairperson, I'm Neri Nkata, Parliament Secretariat.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members. I'm Moira Fiona Matinje, representing Legal Services Division of Parliament. Thank you.
Good morning. Through you, Chair, I'm Judith Sikaloka Kalea, Parliament Secretariat. Thank you.
Media. Kindly take to the mic.
Tembo from Zodiac.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Joyce Wan from Bargamin Radio.
Good morning, Chair and the entire committee. I'm Joseph Mazizi from Capital FM.
Through you, Chair, I'm Tulinje Muluzi, Member of Parliament for Machingali Kwenu, and the Vice Chair for Public Accounts. Thank you.
The former registrar, my name is Stephen Baba Malondera Kansiamo, MP for Lilongwe Nyanja constituency and Chairperson of Public Accounts Committee. I'll give you just a minute to introduce yourself, then we'll have an oath. Over to you, former registrar.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair of PAC, and indeed the members of the committee. My name is McDonald Mare, and as you have already introduced me, I'm the former governor and registrar of financial institutions in Malawi. I left that office on 20th or 23rd of January, having served in that office from 16th of January 2025. Thank you, Chair.
You can switch off your mic. We'll proceed in this manner. Secretariat, can you administer oath?
I, McDonald Mafuta Mware, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you so much for taking that oath. Like I said, we'll now proceed to give you time to give us a background to what you know about this transaction in your capacity as a former registrar of financial institutions. Thereafter, members will ask questions. Over to you, former registrar of financial institutions.
Thank you very much, Chair and the members of the committee. Indeed, let me give you thanks as a committee because I was not supposed to appear here today, but sometime back in March, but I had a predicament which stopped me from coming, and I would like to thank you all for the understanding. I've come here to indeed contribute to what I know from my position as the registrar in terms of what we transacted or what we discussed or communicated between us and the Public Service Pension Trust Board. But my presentation will largely based on what, Chair, you wrote me to come. There were 3 issues that were stated in that letter, and indeed thereafter there might be other issues that can come in. But also, apart from, before I go into my presentation, Chair, I just ask him for your pardon and the committee. My position maybe is not of parliamentary standard, but I'm failing to really sit the way anybody can do because of where I'm coming from. But I'll manage myself. So if I come to my presentation, the first indeed question that was in the letter was whether there was any formal directive, approval, or supervisory action I issued to the fund regarding the transaction. My response is indeed to say that we had a number of directions that we gave them. The first was, as you have mentioned, it was on the 14th of November. This came by after we received a tip-off anonymous from the membership of the board that despite the indications that this institution stopped this transaction, the tip-off to us was that they are still continuing. And this tip-off came to us on the 14th, and immediately, that's when I wrote that letter. And in that letter, it was first to ask them that they should meet my team so that they explain themselves and we reconcile regulatory analysis that we normally do with them. And in that letter, I indeed stopped them to say until we have resolved the concerns from the regulatory point, then they can proceed. But otherwise, at that point, it was really to say, please stop. We see some concerns until we have to resolve those. So that letter was asking for them to meet my team and also immediately to stop anything to do with the transaction. When the day came that we wanted to meet them, they actually said we can't meet the regulator because we have a board meeting in Salima. And my team, I instructed them to say, no, ask them, you can travel to Salima and be able to meet them. But it didn't work until 2 days later when this meeting happened. But my team was told that unfortunately their letter came to them while they had already concluded the deal. And this was the chairman of the board telling my team. The surprising issue at that point to us, or to me as a regulator, was that, Chair, in any investment, any financial institution, there is no need to wait for the letter from the registrar. They have the regulations, the directives, and when they are making decisions in their boards, they do refer to these directives. It required not us to write them, to check the concerns that we had. They could have checked themselves, and each institution knows exactly the boundaries in which they have to operate. Because these directives, we don't do just from Reserve Bank. We discuss with the market, and we agree and push in a regulation. So they could have known the violation that that investment was causing to their own portfolio. And that was the main concern to us. The investment could be viable, maybe looking a lot of lucrativeness, but to us, we don't look at that. As a registrar, my aim was to protect the investor, and in this case, it was the pensioners. What we were involved in, why we were involved in, was largely to see that that investment is still balancing their asset portfolio to make sure that they don't reach a point whereby all the investment is in assets that are very illiquid or assets that cannot give them money quickly to service the demands of their members. So this particular investment, from the way it go, was violating that aspect, to say that you could lock in a lot of resources and fail to pay any, or at least one of, or at least their members, when payments fall due to those members. So that was the main concern to us. But we understand. From that meeting, we told them, give us the information, we analyze it further and see how this investment can still protect the interests of the pensioner. In a way, if they had indeed liked to continue with this investment, they were supposed to come to the registrar and ask for a waiver. If the provision was indeed there for a waiver, they could have come to the registrar to ask for a waiver to say, no, look, we are still interested in this investment, and your concern will be addressed in the following way. If we could have analyzed that information, probably we could have given the waiver. But in this case, nothing of that sort happened. And this is to the end that we see something has been done outside the regime, outside the knowledge of everybody. In particular, the issues, after that meeting, I wrote another letter to still say this is still an issue. Therefore, we still inquire, or we still want you to give us more information. But as of now, can you reconsider this decision? That, as we were waiting Thus, when we realized that the discussions, the payments have been made already. Now, the second issue that I was asked in the letter was to my side, the nature and extent of my role, if any, in the facilitation or authorization of payment made to Amaryllis in relation to the transaction. I can say here, Chair, none. I was not involved in any decision, in any authorization or action pertaining to this payment on Amaryllis transaction. The last part, the third question, was an assessment of the fund's compliance with applicable rules, regulations, and prudential requirements pertaining to the large asset acquisition. As I said in my first point, Chair, I see none of compliance to the regulations that came from the Registrar's Office because, as I said, it was violating the some of the directives that do dictate on how they can manage in order to protect investors. So right from the word go, there was no compliance to our regulations and indeed to the market regulations. As I said, even without us intervening, it was upon themselves even to write the registrar to say we have this issue, but we see it is violating. How can we discuss? So they had to make us understand how our concern is being addressed in the process. So there is violation that was made, and indeed for their reasons, we don't know, but violation continued even after our caution, Chair. The other part that I wanted to add on the three is that to say completely, Chair, the Reserve Bank do not pay or didn't pay on behalf of the fund. This is an independent institution that is established by an act of parliament with the trustees, and they made their own decisions. And I'm sure that we are all aware why it was made that way. It was made that way because it is honoring or it is safeguarding investments of the civil servant pensions. If it was regarded or if it was treated as any of the government resources as an ST, probably there could have been a lot of abuse using these resources for some other important ST's headaches, including running of the government. But it was deliberately by an act of parliament to be put separately so that they manage their affairs independently with the board so that they safeguard this away from government. But in this case, as an independent institution, a Reserve Bank did not authorize or has nothing to do in authorizing their payments. In a nutshell, it is from themselves as an originator to their banks, whichever banks that were handling their resources, to the receiving bank. And I have to say here openly, Chair, maybe because I was leaving this office immediately after these transactions happened, I can tell you I have made an oath here. I saw yesterday that these transactions happened from somewhere in January. Immediately before I left office, I discovered that yesterday when I was preparing, when I was talking to some of my directors. That's the time I realized that this was done. I think the last one, very close to my departure date, on the 19th. So I did not have the liberty to check what really happened. But of course, I would be able to talk to you, my own perception of what I think happened. Thank you.
Thank you so much, former Registrar of Financial Institutions. Honourable members, I open the floor for members to take to the floor. I see Blantyre City, Blantyre Central. Any other takers? I see.
Sorry, to the chair. Pardon me.
Former Registrar of Financial Institutions.
I would really like to be taking question at a time, if that can be allowed.
That's in order. So I'll pick, then we'll give you a question at a time. No problem. Blantyre, it's Blantyre Misesa. So we'll start with Blantyre Central. Blantyre Central, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. And let me also take this opportunity to thank the former Reserve Bank governor for coming up in. I think he has really made an effort to appear before this committee. My question is, I just want to find out from the former Reserve Bank governor, having noted that there were several non-compliance issues regarding this transaction, to the point that some of your decisions were being overruled. Did you escalate these non-compliance issues to other governing issues like, governing authorities like the Financial Intelligence Authority or the Anti-Corruption Bureau, to notify them about the non-compliance issues, about this huge transaction regarding the pension funds? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Blantyre Central. Former Registrar, over to you.
Honorable Blantyre Central, at this point, my escalation was already done. Largely, I did to the Attorney General, but we did not do to the ACB because by that time, from their sources, they were already aware of the issue. And I think largely it was because of the letters that were written by the Law Society. So for me, I did not escalate, and fear as well was written by some other institutions. So I did not escalate right from myself, no. Yeah, they were aware by the time we had this communication with the fund itself, and also the time that we were receiving this anonymous letter. Yes, so I didn't escalate to them. If at all it did, probably maybe later, but not directly from my office.
Thank you so much, former Registrar. Blantyre Misesa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Blantyre City, Chichiri Misesa. Through you, allow me to commend the gesture that the former Reserve Governor has displayed. Indeed, this is being patriotic. We can even see you sitting uncomfortably because of some other pain issues that you are going through. But still more, you have regarded the summoning of Parliament to be of paramount importance. In this regard, Chair, I would like to thank for his patriotism. Coming to our issue, I just wanted to know from you, former Reserve Bank Governor, that what prompted you to stop the sale? Was it the amount of 128, which is seemingly big, or what other issues did you see when you are writing a letter to stop the board from proceeding with the sale? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Blantyre Misesa. Former Registrar, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Member from Blantyre Misesa. Exactly what prompted us was one, the magnitude of the investment, which was already violating the investment directives that are there for financial institutions. And this is exactly what I said earlier, to say that they could have locked a lot of resources in that investment, but any investment has got risks. Suppose the hotel was not going to perform and give them the liquidity enough to manage the payments, the demands from the pensioners to get their resources. If that investment just locks their investments to the extent of jeopardizing the timely payment of pension funds, that was the main issue, and that was the main concern which me and my team looked at. And also, it was being seen as not really following all the processes that we normally require. For example, verbally from the meeting, I don't know whether this was reported by the registrar, the current registrar who came with a team. When my team went to Salima to meet them, the chair was apologetic to some board members, and this is what I was told from my team, to say, sorry, some of you are hearing this for the first time, but there is this investment that we are doing. To me and to my team, that showed that probably the procedures are not getting followed, because to reach out executing an investment like that, the board must have agreed, must have endorsed. But to us, in the face of a registrar or a team from the registrar, the chair to apologize to his members, we thought probably no, this requires more information. So those two, Chair, were the issues that I was dragging my feet to really let go that this thing should happen. Because one, it violated the investment directive, and two, clearly we could see that maybe the procedures are not being followed. Thank you, Chair.
You, controlling officer, kindly switch off your mic. Former registrar, I see Zomba City North. I see Lilongwe Chirobwe. I see Salima Central. We'll start with Zomba City North. Zomba City North, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And through you, I want to ask the former Reserve Bank Governor that transactions involving huge sums of money triggers an alert to the Reserve Bank. where it seeks for clearance that the monies should be transferred through the banks. Why did you not block this transaction at the clearing or settlement stage? Cognizant of the fact that the current registrar managed to coordinate with Financial Intelligence Authority to freeze a hoping sum amounting to 72.2 billion, why did you not do the same to block this transaction? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Zomba Sitenov, former Registrar of Financial Institutions. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. My office acts on information. My reaction from the date of the 14th was acting on information from the public to my office to say there is this thing, and I did not want it to proceed. I can say, as I have already said, Chair, no one reported these transactions to me. As a governor, as a registrar, you see things through either your departments or indeed the public. When I discovered this yesterday, I was on the phone to the team. Why, how did this happen? And I have 2 or 3 things that probably went wrong. First of all, the issuing bank, which is FDH, had an instruction from the trustees to pay an account in the bank, in National Bank. And the receiving bank, which is National Bank, kept on receiving these resources. Ideally, we could have a report from these two after looking at the repeating process that was happening, to report to say, not necessarily to RBM, they do report these transactions to FIA. I expected probably that could have been the process that we could have known that these transactions happened. Chair, these transactions, any bank transacted through what we call ATS, Automated Transfer System. It is owned by the central bank, but it is used by all the banks, and they transact big amounts, small amounts. It's like I should take the discussion to us here. If I want to send money to him, my bank is National Bank, his bank is Standard Bank, or indeed another bank. When we do the transactions, so for example, more 626, the CEO doesn't know, the CEO of National Bank, but I initiate the operation and he receives money in seconds. And it's regard this as the same. FDH puts in an instruction to debit its account and send the money to National Bank. It is in seconds. It is quick. Just like MOS 626 or any other of these things. We were not aware. And the issue that I noted at that point, indeed, I was supposed to be alerted by these two institutions after seeing the repeating of from the same account to that account. They normally report such, and we have been able to receive information that this is happening, can you investigate further fear? I don't know whether fear has come here. I don't know whether they had that report, but in my side, we didn't have the report. Even from my department, this is a national payments department. Nobody reported to the registrar until I left the office. And the Reserve Bank came to know this in February, when banks do now submit their reports to the central bank. And that's when, indeed, the current registrar had to take action. Had I known, I could have taken that action same time. But, Chair, it didn't happen that way. I had no information. And to me, it's the two banks looking at the repeat of the transaction. And also, if I don't know at what level, this is technical. I don't know at what level do my people or do the department look into these transactions. But I was not aware, Chair.
Thank you, former Registrar of Reserve Bank, Lilongwe Chilobwe. Supplementary, let's take from Mulanje West, then supplementary from Blantyre Bisesa.
Thank you, Chair, and all my seniors. I just want to ask that when the banks are they're transacting huge sum of money and they are consulting, do they consult you directly or they consult somebody who reports to you? Because I'm asking this because this is a lot of money which was transacted from the bank. And immediately the same day you were supposed to know what was happening, and you are telling us that we didn't know. That's why I'm asking that, do they consult the Reserve Bank directly to you as the RBM, or they do consult somebody under under your office? Thank you so much, sir.
Can you take that supplementary? Then we'll go to Blantyre Misesa for another supplementary. Registrar?
Thank you, Chair. No, they don't consult. As I've said, it is an automated transfer system. It's like, I will keep giving you example of humanitarian level, whereby you want to send money to me. You don't consult the CEO for National Bank who owns the more 626. You just push in a transaction. So it is automatic. They don't at all consult the registrar, unless probably there are issues to do with the violation also on their part in terms of the limits. For example, if they could violate, these are resources in the bank, but if they have violated the liquidity reserve requirement, they are supposed to keep a certain amount of money with the Reserve Bank. If they violated that, they could have consulted one or two different departments to seek authorization. But in this case, there is no consultation, Honorable Member. Thank you. It is automated.
Switch off your mic. Thank you. Blantyre Misesa, you said you have supplementary. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you, I just wanted to know from the former Reserve Bank Governor, after he had explained to the committee that he stopped the board from proceeding with the transaction, and the board still proceeded on the same, and to the extent that monies were exchanged behind his back. If we are to say Reserve Bank as a regulator has failed, would you agree with me? Thank you, Chair.
No, I will not agree.
Blantyre Misesa for supplementary. former registrar of financial institutions. Over to you.
Sorry, Chair, but I would say no, I will not agree that the Reserve Bank failed. Because I think I did what I was supposed to do. And the last letter that I wrote to them, by this time, I was still waiting for them to give us information. One could include the body resolution. Two, even information to address my concerns. I was still waiting, but I think we have to realize here what type of institution we are dealing with. To me, I've resigned to say these people were determined to do what they wanted without regard to any law. And when it comes to people like that, I think it is beyond any legislation. Because here, as I said, they did not want to cooperate with us. Even at the starting of these payments, with a letter from the registrar that you should stop. But they went ahead. They were determined. We did our part. Yes, they went through our system, but it was because banks do transact on a daily basis in there. We didn't realize, at least myself, I was not taught. I was not informed. No report came to me that this is continuing. At that time, I was still waiting from them to submit the reports so that we analyze them and assure ourselves that pensioners are protected. So I would not agree that we failed to protect the nation's pension fund. We did what we could do, but we were fighting with a bigger, maybe, problem than we expected. Because honestly, colleagues in the financial institution, when I write a letter like this, it is a serious issue. But to these people, this was nothing. You can talk to private banks, private institutions. They don't ignore this letter because I close institutions. But in this case, they had nothing to do with it. They had nothing to do with the registrar and nothing to do with the regulation. They were determined to do what they wanted. And here we are. Thank you.
Maybe before, okay, I give you time, but we all members are supposed to speak, so I'll give you time. Branta Misesa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm saying this simply because the former Reserve Bank governor, in another way, he has said he was fighting with a bigger thing. So there is a failure. Because if you admit that this thing is big, you pave way. That is a failure. That's why I'm saying Reserve Bank as a regulator was supposed to be, or is supposed to be, on top of things to regulate how the board should conduct itself. Because the monies that they are misbehaving with is for the poor Malawians who are suffering. They are still suffering, and they've got a greater hope that someday, if something happens, they will be compensated. They will be given the money to bail them out. So as a regulator, I just wanted you, former Reserve Bank governor, with your honest word, to tell Malawians what happened. Was it good? If it was not good, what else as a regulator would you have done in order to save the pensioners? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Planta Misesa. Registrar of Financial Institutions, former, over to you.
Chair, what was done here is not good. And indeed, if I had this information, I would have done exactly what the current governor did to freeze those accounts. But as I said, we do operate on information. We were not aware. These to the central bank looked as normal transactions that banks do transact on a daily basis. So it's not that there was any failure, but there was a willing partner not to be compliant. Rules are effective when everybody decides to be compliant. But if nobody is compliant, that's where we end to say, okay, let the courts do their job. No rule can be effective, no institution can be effective if the other partners decides to be uncompliant. Chair.
Thank you so much, Controlling Officer. I had recognized Lilongwe Chilobe. Lilongwe Chilobe.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to appreciate the effort made by the former governor of the Reserve Bank to appear before us this morning, despite his condition. As much as I know, for someone to reach that level of a governor of the central bank takes much of an effort. Being a son of a former governor of Reserve Bank, you can have the experience of this. But still, allow me, Mr. Chair, to ask the former governor a few questions. From what you've said here, I would like to know a few things. Who was the chair who told your team that the deal has already been concluded after you had given a stop order? The second one is about what measures are taken when violations of such magnitude take place. From your experience, I understand you were a Secretary of the Treasury before. I would like to know if such big transaction can go through without the knowledge of the Secretary to the Treasury and the Minister of Finance. From your experience as a former Secretary, as a former ST. The other thing which I would like to ask you, the former governor, is understanding whatever happened after you left the institution, some of the things that you have learned as late as a day or two before. What reforms to the registrar's powers would you now recommend to ensure that no future board can simply overrun a stop order as it had happened in this case? The last one is, why do you think the board behaved in this manner? Because it's so strange that after you've given an order, they went on to do whatever they could do. After they have regulations which should guide them on how best they can execute the duties, they went on to do what they do. You must have an idea, or you have a view of what might have been happening to make sure that these people finished whatever they were doing. Because in your speech you said about determination that the board had, that the purchase still go on despite all this. What do you think, without us speculating or just thinking? Tell us, with your experience as the former Secretary of the Treasury and Governor of the Central Bank, what do you think was happening? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lilongwe Chirobwe. Former Registrar of Financial Institutions, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me, from the onset, apologize because this institution has undergone quite a lot of changes. I cannot singularly say the name of the chair, but I hope that the Reserve Bank was here, and through that channel, we could be able to provide that name, because the team that I sent is still there, serving as regulators, and I'm sure that they can assist us on that name. Can you remind me on the second part, because the third part was the involvement of ST?
Lilongwe Chirobwe.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's something to do with what measures are taken when violations of such magnitude have taken place. Is that the one which? Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Measures that could be taken, one is to exactly do as the Reserve Bank did, freeze these accounts. But there is also a possibility that we could have revoked licenses of this institution to trade in the market. Even going further down, not only the institution, but even individual persons that were part of this decision could have been suspended from acting in the financial institution. That could have been probably the process leading to complete revocation of the pension license that was given to the institution. Going to the issue of the ST, as I said, Chair, I don't even think that the ST was aware of this, singularly because we signed a trust deed, and I took it here, which gives free mandate, independence of employer representatives in the board and the employees representatives in the board to make decisions on behalf of the pensioners on which investments to make. So, I would doubt very much if the ST was aware of this investment. The only time when I was ST, when I could meet this team, is when they are coming to lobby for payments, because at that time, we had a lot of arrears to pay to them, the contributions, to pay to them for them to go out there to be investing. So they could come to request where or when can we pay the arrears. And that's the only time that as ST I interface with these people, apart from a situation where when they were asking for these resources, I also asked to say, mindful of the investments, go through government action plan to be in line with government's agenda. And at that point, they indicated a number of investments that they want to undertake. Indeed, one that I could remember clearly was for them to go into the macadamia farming somewhere. But we were cautioning to say, in this case, there should be a thorough analysis, benefit cost analysis before you move in, but be able to align with the government agenda on which areas to invest in the private sector, because growth comes from there. They never indicated at that point, but of course that was 2023. So probably this was not on the table, and they never mentioned this. But in short, Honorable Member, to answer you, the only way, the only maybe point to say is, I don't think the ST was aware. I don't think the ST did or got the information that the pension fund is going this way. Probably maybe that could have also been one of the areas which we could have had information, because there was now the viability. But when I went to the RBM, it was the issue of balancing the portfolio to make sure that the pensioner is served. What reforms? Looking carefully, the reforms that could be there is, one, the composition of this team, because we take people from the ministries at the request of the fund. We want a lawyer on our board. We want an accountant on our board. I think the composition should be enhanced, or even outsource the management to able institutions, like we have institutions in Malawi that manage pensions. To me, I think that could be one of the reforms that I could propose going through, because this is not good. Disregarding the registrar is not good. And I can't see Odimicho, I can't see Nico doing this type of work. It is not good. Why do you think the board behaved in this way, disregarding my orders? It is also puzzling me, because as I said, once a registrar writes this letter, and probably in the history of Malawi, this is the first time that an institution has defied the order. I have grown up in the Reserve Bank. This is the first time. Why? Probably it is the people that have to be answerable. But to me, it was very surprising. And I can't imagine any other institution in Malawi doing the same. As I'm waiting for information, they go ahead and do the payments. Imagine that. If it was another institution, I don't think it could have happened. But let's investigate why it happened. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. You had recognized Salima Centro. Salima Centro.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chair, hearing from the former registrar, it looks like at that material time, he was less powerful as a registrar, and the board was more powerful, in the sense that any direction or any guidance was violated. But what we have gathered in this inquiry, and even from himself, it is the registrar who licensed the board. Now, but this time around, the registrar is failing to give even any penalty. And from what I gather from him, he's even shocked that why the body could defy all the orders. Now, my other question, Chair, is, did he suspect that the board was acting on behalf of someone more powerful than the registrar? And number two, I was thinking something simpler was going to happen, that when an order is given and the violation is still happening, what kept him to be so slow to act and acting on punishing this board? Is it on the same reason that he was fearing someone behind the board? Because the board in this case was supposed to be listening and probably attending to the directives. Thank you, Chair.
The former Registrar of Financial Institutions, over to you.
No, Chair, thank you very much. I could not say I had a sense that there is somebody more powerful than the registrar. I work independently, and I don't think I had a sense. But maybe what I could see is them to make their own name, to say we have invested for our pensioners in this particular investment. I don't know what was pushing them, but maybe could it be the lucrativeness of owning that magnificent hotel or what? But we could not sense. Only we wanted to be assured that their portfolio is balanced according to the directives. So to me, I don't think I had the sense at that time that they are acting on behalf of some other powerful person, apart from or powerful than the registrar. I had no sense of that at that time. And indeed, up to now, I don't think I have that sense. But I'm saying it is a group of 9-10 people. I think they have to give us honest directions. If they had, as independent as they are, if they had gone against their own independence to ask for intrusion of more power from somewhere, they have to tell the committee where is that power coming from. But otherwise, for us, we are surprised. We are surprised as equally as you are surprised. Were they having some powers? I don't know, honestly. But I think we need to get more information from them. Were they fearing, or was I fearing somebody? No, not indeed. Because maybe on the payment side, I didn't do action. And as you can see, they were paid maybe 7 days before my departure from the office. So I didn't do action, I had no time, but definitely, as swift as I did, when I get the tip of Anonymous, I could have done the same if I had the report that they have paid. To me, action like what they did, the registrar, to freeze or through fear to freeze the accounts, that was the first step. And then going through details now to see why are they violating, and maybe go further to what I'm proposing or what I see as penalties. Revoke the license, stop them from trading. If at all they could adhere to that at that point. But otherwise, revoking license was going to be the next after freezing. So I don't know. As of now, I'm sure that there are able legislators behind the governor who will advise him on the process. It might be slow because we need information, one from the institution and indeed from other institutions. So probably there will still be action, but I'm sure that somebody somewhere is working on that action. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much for that response from the question that you got from Salima Central. Other members, anyone with any question? I see a hand from Lilongwe East. Lilongwe East, please.
Chair, for giving an opportunity to ask a question. I've got two questions. The first one is, in light of what the controlling officer has said, I would like to understand the role Reserve Bank plays regarding transactions of huge sums of the fund, and at what stage the role Reserve Bank plays regarding huge sums of that nature. Second question, between the two, that's the registrar and the system, who is to blame as regards to the transaction in question? The registrar and the system, who is to blame of this mess? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lilongwe East. Over to you, former Reserve Bank Governor, former Registrar of Financial Institutions. Can you take that one from Lilongwe East?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. The role of the Reserve Bank in the transactions of the fund, particularly, I would say we don't have any role. They operate through banks that operate on our system, which is automatic. Doesn't require any approval from the Reserve Bank. Just as I said, it's just like more 626. It's just like Mpamba. You send through an instruction, your friend receives money. It doesn't require the CEO of the bank to make an approval. But at the end of the day, at the end of, in this case, of the month, when banks gives us reports, we now detect some of these issues. That's what I could say. But at the time when this is happening, honorable members, I can repeat here, because it is automated, they do transact bigger volumes from one bank to the other without authorization required from the central bank or indeed any part of the bank. This is automated. Thank you. Who is in the mess? The system or the registrar? I was the registrar, and obviously I was not in the mess. I would say probably we needed to do better on the system. But I'll still insist on the, having looked at the frequency, I needed somebody to do a report, investigate quickly, a report to FIA, so that we could have maybe stopped it faster than it was done. Otherwise, I think the system, if we have to make some changes, maybe reduce the volumes, the magnitudes that have to go through. But it will be difficult because banks do move big monies on a daily basis. So to what level I can reduce, oh, sorry, I'm not there. To what level we can reduce the magnitudes? Maybe it's something that can be discussed between the banks and the central bank to limit how much can be transacted within there. But otherwise, this time, it was automatic, and we do normally receive reports after the event and then try to start looking at why here, how did it happen, and the like. So this is exactly what happened here, Chair. We can't stop the CEO can't stop your more 626. No. It is a second, just 1 second it goes through. So it is difficult to say. Maybe we should agree to tweak on the system, but it will have its implications. But otherwise, it is as it is. Banks do trade in there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, controlling former Registrar of Financial Institutions.
Honourable members, you may wish to check on the forum and other things, because I see that honourable members have engaged the controlling officer, especially those who have appeared earlier. Would like to appreciate controlling officer. Yes, I see Chitipa Central.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I thought you were closing, but I have just one question, which was supposed to be a follow-up to the question which Salima Sento asked. The question was about...
Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson, for recognizing the great people of Chitipa Sento. The question was about, his question, Salima Sento, was about if there was someone on board more powerful than the registrar, of which would have followed up with, because there are so many conveniences and coincidences that one would think this coincidence or convenience. I'm looking at the letter which was drafted on 14th. On that letter, 14th was already Friday, Saturday, Sunday, meaning 17th would be Monday. Conveniently, the stakeholder did not send the letter. The letter was delivered in the afternoon to the fund. Had it been the letter was signed on Friday, it would have been delivered on Friday or in the morning on Monday, so that they would have had that order. But in that case, they got the letter later than it would serve the purpose. I would think it's convenience, and I would think the convenience was coming because there was someone or a body which is more powerful than his office. So I'm just looking at the convenience, or he can explain on the convenience of why drafting the letter on 14th and deliver it on the 17th in the afternoon, which would not serve any purpose. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Chitipa Central. Former Registrar, over to you.
Chair, indeed, I think if we look correctly, thank you, Chitipa Central, for that. If you look correctly, the 14th was the Friday. And I can tell you, the tip-off anonymous came Friday, same day. And when my team told me about the tip-off, that's immediately I said, colleagues, you need to write immediately to the board chair so that you meet him and get the story from them. But insist on stopping the transactions until the concerns from my office are met. And that letter was deployed on the same day. I don't know whether the tip-off has a date, but I'm sure if it has, it will carry that date of the 14th. I didn't see the tip-off itself, my team did, but based on the report, the quick reaction that they did, I had to direct them to write me that letter, to ask for a meeting, and to immediately stop the transaction. So, convenience, yes, of course, because it was a Friday, but normally in the Reserve Bank, what we do is we write to an institution that letter. First, it goes in an email. And then secondly, it has to be directly delivered hard copy. So maybe this was the hard copy you are referring to, the one you could say it came on a Monday, but I'm sure somebody somewhere there received it through the email. I could not confirm, but that's the practice in the Reserve Bank. You send an email, as long as it has been signed. We know where it has gone, you send, and then it follows a hard copy. So, as I said, Chair, we could not say that the letter was delayed, that's why they did the transaction. These colleagues in the financial sector know. Before even they start talking of any investment, they look at the directives. And they're the ones who can discover to say, look here, we want to do this, but if we do, we are violating that and that and that. And it is the basis where I have been repeating myself, where they can write seeking a waiver. If that directive that they are violating has a provision of a waiver. But these colleagues, I doubt if they even did that analysis of which directives are we violating. And they just proceeded. They did not require my letter. Even if my letter was coming 10 days later, I think they had a moral obligation to look at the directives that guide their investment and observe those directives and do the right thing. So that even without my letter, this thing could have been stopped by the silent directive that they have.
The Chitipa Central, supplementary.
Yeah, for the record, perhaps Secretariat may want to follow up if the email was sent on Friday, because as he's putting it, he's saying even without his letter, they were not supposed to. But why drafting it in the first place? It means it was a requirement for them to act based on the directive. So my worry still stands that there's convenience that the letter was drafted on Friday, it was not signed until Monday. So for the record, I would go through you, Chair, that you requested that the email be shared so that for the record, our secretary can have that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Former Registrar of Financial Institutions, you talked of an email, so Chitipa Central, on behalf of this committee, is looking forward for that email so that as a House of Record, we can keep the information.
Chair, what I've said is the practice that is in the bank. And for the records also, this letter I signed on the Friday, not on a Monday. I signed on the Friday. This was very, very looked at very speedily. We were not comfortable with it. And we tried to make sure that we don't lose time. My letter was signed on Friday, and I signed, I give the department, and the practice is we put through an email and it goes later. I'm sure these people received an email. If it is there, I can ask because I have no access to the RPM. Even the letters, you asked me to bring some documentation. They said, we submitted everything and you are not supposed to submit anything. You are not within the central bank. So, if the email is there, as I expect my team to behave, to send an email first, it will be provided.
Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. You have been very patient with me, Chair. Thank you so much. Chair, just for the record again, according to the stakeholder here, the registrar here, the letter was written on Friday, signed on Friday, but only delivered on Monday. As he's putting it, it was an urgent matter which would wait until Monday. So for the record, I wanted the House to note that according to the registrar, it was written on Friday, signed on Friday, but it was delivered on Monday afternoon. Written on 14th, delivered on 17th afternoon. Thank you, Chair. That was just for the record.
Thank you so much, Chitipa Central, for allowing the committee as well as the registrar to take note of that development. And the former registrar indicated that looking at the part at hand, he did sign on the 14th. So we'll take it that way. That said, I would like to give the former registrar of financial institutions time, maybe just to give us your synopsis before you take leave. Over to you, the former registrar of financial institutions.
Thank you, Chair, once again for bearing with me. I've not been myself, but I hope I've been clear enough, and I don't take that for granted. And again, I should thank you and the members. Indeed, as I said earlier, my apologies that I didn't obey the call to come here in time. But I hope you can understand. I was very far away from Malawi. The second issue that I really wanted to appreciate is the friendly conversation that I've had here. I've been here many times. It's not the first time. But I could see all your questions are to find information that will help you make decisions. To me, I think the best we have to do is to use government machinery and get information from these people. How could they disobey the registrar? When the registrar is looking for information, they will go ahead and do everything. To me, it is these people that are at the center of this issue, and probably they are the only ones who could give us that light. I don't know whether they have come here already or they are still to come. I was not able to follow most of what is happening, but we need these people to tell us who was behind them. We need these people to really tell us why could they have disobeyed the registrar and moved on and put all of us in this predicament. This is not good. The nation has stopped on this. Nothing is being discussed. But this, how much value is it adding to the economy? Nothing. It is wasting your time, everybody's time. These people have to be accountable. If they have people behind them, they'll be able to mention and to tell you if government machinery is used. But honestly, the country is at ransom. We need to move on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Once again, on behalf of Public Accounts Committee, let me thank you because you've honored an invitation. When we sent an invitation in March, you actually responded and gave clear guidance, and we followed up with a direct call. It actually confirmed that you were not in good health. As such, we would like to thank you that when we sent another letter, you indeed confirmed that you had not regained your full strength, but you remained committed to appearing before this committee. Apologies that we've kept you seated in that bad position for so long, but thank you so much for your dedication and patriotism that you've displayed to this committee and to this great nation. I would like also to appreciate that you've even suggested some of the reforms that in your wisdom you feel can help the nation going forward on how we're going to administer the fund. Of paramount importance, you're looking at the composition of the team. That's what you also mentioned. You even suggested on the hiring of experts to help in the learning of that. This is in line with the interest of the committee, that there is need for benchmarking and key learning so that we move forward. With this said, we'd like to give you space to take leave, and thank you so much for appearing before this committee. You may take leave at your pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Kumbukirani kupanga subscribe to our YouTube channel, Malawi News Daily Updates, kuti nkhani zochitika ku Malawi isamakuphonyeni. Inyo mzikhala munthu kambirira kumva kamene akuonera nkhani zimenezi.